All right, it's our new segment, Johnny. We open up each episode with a verbal exercise. Today I'm going to invite you to join me in giving a hearty, evil pirate laugh to sort of get the vocal cords going. I'll demonstrate. That sounds more like a witch, doesn't it? Does that sound better?
Oh, okay.
Is it getting
That's
there?
getting a little
It's getting
partier,
there.
yeah. Okay. Oh, geez, I
Back to the witch again.
wasn't ready for this.
I try to mix it up, Johnny. Welcome to Leagues Behind, the vodcast where we look back at previous tournaments that the Arena Gauntlet League has run, and we discuss whether we got it perfectly right the first time around or whether there's things that we would do better or differently. I'm your host, Chris York, and the tournament coordinator, as well as the founder of the AGL. And my special guest today is Johnny Mariani. He's a former member of the LC and a stalwart of the community. He has graciously volunteered to discuss with me the tournament design for our Ixalan Remastered tournament from the end of 2023 and the precursor, the sort of lead up event to the Lost Caverns of Ixalan League. Welcome, Johnny.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me, of course. I love talking about this kind of stuff with you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and you're a get, and you're a go-to for these old tournaments, especially because this one you were largely responsible for designing. So I want to sort of pick your brain a little bit about the concept for the tournament and what was the original pitch and what kind of tournament design aims were you trying to realize in throwing all this together. So I'm going to give you the sort of ball to explain the background of everything here.
Yeah, so I think so. The context is really important here. This is, we need a 3-week league. We're right before Lost Caverns of Ixalan comes out. We, tried doing custom packs, these fellowship packs in the Lord of the Rings League. We're seeing Wizards release their series once a year of remastered sets, Innistrad Remastered and Dominaria Remastered. On Arena, we got Shadows over Innistrad Remastered a bit before, now. And we have the new technology.
Kaladesh and Amonkhet too, right?
Oh yeah. We've seen those two,
Yeah.
and we have the new booster tutor technology of linking to Cube Cobra and being able to make packs from Cube Cobra. And so, and we have for sure me, and I think you, who would love to kind of backfill our leagues and do one of every arena set. We've done every release, so that comes out, and once we did the Eldraine Flashback League, it's like, okay, what's next? When are we doing Theros Beyond Death Flashback? We just did the Ravnica Ventures League,
Right.
finally to get those sets. And so, this was the perfect opportunity to revisit Ixalan, which is also part of the context is that Ixalan is like a reviled limited set.
Yeah, I mean, basically, good, bad, and ugly. I'm an unashamed and unapologetic completionist. Like I've said before on the server, if they brought back things like Onslaught or any old set, it would please me to my core. Backfilling is my bag. I'm still waiting on the core set league, famously, impatiently waiting for the chance to do a Jumpstart league, and lately I've sort of been banging the drum for a Masters set or a sort of like arena unpowered cube sort of mini tournament. So yeah, like yourself, I'm a fan of using up the real estate that Wizards has graciously given us on the client, and playing with cards that we just haven't had the chance to play with before. So I was excited to go back to Ixalan. I love the flavor. I love the world. And looking back over the list of cards that you provided me, I got that little feeling again. I got that little flutter in my heart. I'm like, this was this was a good thing to do. This was a good tournament, generally speaking.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. That like Ixalan, the world, the setting is really nice, and there are some nice things about uh, that block. Some nice mechanics, but yeah, the drafting wasn't that good, that interesting. It's kind of the tribal problem that we're
Yeah,
seeing with Lore and Eclipsed and other tribal sets.
yeah, everything's on rails.
Sealed's a bit different. Sealed, we don't have those same issues, but also it's like revisiting an older set. It's a little simpler. There's a lot more vanilla creatures, which aren't going to be that appealing. It's not what we're used to now. And so the idea here was we're going to Lost Caverns. Let's precede it by visiting Ixalan. It's kind of nice to set us up, reintroduce us to the plane before diving in Lost Caverns. And then because it's not considered a great classic set, it's okay to mess with it
Yeah,
and it's okay to remaster it. And by remastering it, and the word remaster comes with a lot of oomph, a lot of credibility, a lot of excitement. So by calling it Ixalan Remastered, I think we're going to entice people a lot more
right.
than if we just said Ixalan as is League,
Yeah.
which people would say, well, like, oh, I heard that set sucks. I don't want to play this League.
Yeah, that's right.
Uh,
I think that you're right in saying like we couldn't have justified going back and doing a 6 week campaign league using these sets simply because that real estate has already been mined. Let's say historically recently, right? I think we could even go back and do something like, gosh, I don't know, like I said, Legion's block kind of stuff is far enough away in the memory, or even original, uh, you know, champions of Kamigawa. That kind of stuff, I think you could probably, even though it's unpowered and not very juiced gameplay, you could probably still sell it on the fact that most people haven't actually played with the original sets and would be, gagging for a chance to do so. I feel like Ixalan is still in, at least at the time we pitched this in 2023, it was still close enough in people's rearview mirror that it was going to be hard to sell as a 6 week campaign league. So I think Accelerated League was the way to go. And also combining the two sets of Ixalan, Rivals of Ixalan, and then a selection of other cards drawn from diverse places, such as I think you borrowed from some of the Modern Horizons sets, maybe some Jumpstart sets, maybe some cards that were reskinned for Ixalan in the core sets, these kinds of sources. And I think that you use these to sort of fill out the world and deserve the title remastered, right? Not just ride on its coattails, but actually earn the title of a remastered set.
yeah, and yeah, I'd mentioned Shadows over Innistrad Remastered, where it's like focused on Innistrad the set, but then there's also the bonus sheet of older Innistrad's stuff. Like add a little juice to freshen up the format for people who already know it.
Yeah. Well, and
It's a way
create a new
to
format,
introduce
basically,
extra.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
to make it novel and to juice it up a little bit. You mentioned Modern Horizons cards tend to have a fair amount of play to them. There's some of the Machine cards and Aftermath cards that got in there because those sets featured all the settings. There's some Aquaria dinosaurs
Yeah.
got in there. And so in the end, like having a bonus sheet of extra cards, I thought that was really nice to make it not just Ixalan. And a way to justify it beyond if we said, okay, let's do Ixalan League and we'll do, half your packs are Ixalan, half your packs are Rivals of Ixalan. Which could have been an option, but I think by really embracing, we're mixing those sets, we're adding a whole other bonus sheet. This is a little bit after I think Brothers War came out, and bonus sheets I think are really have become even more of a thing since then.
Yeah, and I mean, this is importantly, it's something that Wizards themselves haven't remastered, right? So like we're kind of doing work that Wizards hasn't taken on yet and may never take on. But I'm realizing now we talked a little bit about the general idea of revitalizing these sets for league play. We talked about the idea of a remastered set. We haven't really talked about the tournament specific rules. So to ground people in the tournament itself, we had Ixalan Remastered packs as comeback packs. And I'm just going to read from the rule set here. They follow standards rare distribution, except they have 2 common slots upgraded to uncommon slot and a bonus sheet slot. And that refers to the Ixalan Remastered card list that you have on Cube Cobra. And that's in the rule set posted, I think, in the League Rules and Registration thread if you want to look that up. And there's a custom bonus sheet. Each remastered pack will include 1 additional card from our specially tailored bonus sheet, right? So if Wizards can do it, we can do it, right? We can put this in, juice the packs a little bit, get people excited. Each common card is 3 times as likely to appear in every given pack as each rare or mythic rare, fair enough, and each uncommon twice as likely to appear. So that's, roughly speaking, a French vanilla league, other than the fact that we're remastering a set, which is fairly ambitious. And making a bonus sheet, which is, again, is fairly ambitious. But the league mechanics themselves are basically vanilla. If you know the Arena Gauntlet League sort of classic formula, this is shortened because it's an accelerated league, right? So you're playing up until 6 losses. You're playing for 3 weeks, 5 matches a week. And you're trying to stick around until the last week so you can take part in the Mega Draft. There is one other twist. There's a so-called Ascend pack. So again, the Ascend mechanic was from Rivals of Ixalan, and it keyed on there being 10 or more permanents in play. Similarly, in the tournament Ixalan Remastered, the Ascend pack was activated when you reached 10 matches played, regardless of whether you won or lost those matches. You got 10 rares and mythic rares from Ixalan Remastered. So that was pretty exciting. I don't know if it saved me. I don't know if I did very well in this tournament, but it sure sounds splashy and it's very thematic. So I'm on board for that. The Mega Draft itself was... just one last rule. The Mega Draft was going to consist of 2 packs of Ixalan, 2 packs of Rivals of Ixalan, and by that time, Lost Caverns of Ixalan was also going to be legal. So we're getting a little taste of the future league. So it's going to be 2, all the in-world Ixalan sets for the Mega Draft. So those are the basic rules. Johnny, you wanted to jump in there?
Yeah. So first on the Mega Draft, it's a little awkward that we're not using Ixalan Remastered for the draft.
Right.
But I believe that's due to technical limitation of maybe what we thought was possible.
I think Draftmancer, we hadn't quite figured out the Draftmancer, how to link it to Cube Cobra yet. I think that still was...
Yes, I think there's something there. And also, it was like the timing was too good of Lost Caverns is coming out right as this league's wrapping up.
Yeah.
Let's include that in the draft as a nice way to spice it up.
Segue I think this is into the next tournament.
Yeah, and we're doing a 3-week league of an old set. We don't need to follow the standard, last 6 sets Mega Draft format. So what's something fun and interesting we can do? And like, okay, well, the brand new set, I think really will make that pop. So it was a little funny, but I think it's still good. And then the Ascend mechanic that was someone else's idea. I unfortunately don't remember who. But I think it suits a 3-week league of saying, we're only playing to 6 losses. We're not opening as many packs as usual. But it's something that lets us amp up the power a little faster or at a certain point. So that week 3 feels like a normal league's week 6.
Mm-hmm.
And, something like comparable things would be like, well, in Eldraine League, we did double the punishment packs. So by the time you got to the end, you had all that extra power. or with Ravnica Adventure League, I guess on everyone's last loss, they probably got a really big bonus. I got like a ton of planeswalkers, and my pool went through the roof at the end there. And it fits thematically a little bit the world of Ixalan of we're these pirates hunting for treasure.
Right.
Like make it to week 3 and here you go. X marks the spot. You found some loot.
That's right. Yeah.
And just a nice simple way to make the league a little more than just vanilla. Play a bunch of matches and that's it.
So, given all this, given that we've given an outline, we've given a lay of the land in terms of the tournament landscape and the mechanics. I think the real story is in the remastering. So let's talk a little bit about curation, or what I've identified previously as the problem of curation, right? In that when we make choices, we have to justify them in a sense more strongly than Wizards of the Coast does as designers of the game. They're supposed to have full-time jobs balancing sets and being able to spot troublesome interactions and cards that shouldn't be there. Now, I think, right, we obviously have a bit more leeway in that the sets that we come up with aren't going to be played by millions of people. The format's not going to be solved, in a few weeks, I don't think, in most cases. And I do think because of that, we can be a little looser in terms of inclusions and maybe exclusions. I'm assuming that the first, I was a little bit involved in this one in terms of advising on includes. I was pretty heavy on the flavor, right? I wanted things that were in world to have their place first and foremost, and that was important for me so that Ixalan Remastered still felt like Ixalan. And not just all the most powerful cards from the Arena client, plus some Ixalan draft chaff to hold it all together, right? So flavor was important. Was there any other sort of desiderata or criteria that you employed in deciding what was in and what was out?
Yeah. So kind of the main goal was don't screw this up. And that this. The rules were pretty simple, but this might be the league with the most authorship involved, in that every single card that anyone casts during the league, is there because at one point I said, okay, let's put this one in versus something else.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of decisions there, and a lot of curation.
Was there some tension or some anxiety or just pride?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Or what was the dominant emotion for you when you saw people playing in this world that you curated or created?
Well, it was the most I've ever followed punishment pack openings. Most of them, I'm not looking at pack generation to see what someone else got, but this league, every single pack I looked at. And every time there's something that I wasn't happy with, oh man, that card got opened again.
Right.
Or every time someone complained about a card, it's geez, should that have been in there or not? I don't know. Whereas now we're playing Lorwyn. If someone complains about whatever Chronicle of I don't know what the card is, the Mega Bomb artifact.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't care. Wizards printed it. They have to sell packs. They have to put something exciting.
Yeah.
Too bad. That's what's there.
It's on
that. But again, if someone complains about a card here, it's it's because I thought it was okay, and I give it the green light. But for the most part, it was there's I guess two aspects. One is combining Ixalan and Rivals with Ixalan, and then cutting it down. And the other part was the bonus sheet. For the bonus sheet, it was really, the flavor has to be a good fit. That was the main thing. And naturally, the cards that do have good flavor fits tended to be good mechanical fits. So that's fine. And if they aren't great mechanical fits, that's okay. It's just extra variety. But definitely preserving the flavor was important for what we're doing here.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to look at it in terms of my girlfriend's kids, they're weightlifters, so I know the terminology of bulking and cutting. So when you put Ixalan and Rivals of Ixalan together, I think about it like bulking, and from there you're like, once you have that big file, you're cutting down to some sort of final form of cards. And maybe, I don't know if you want to add additional toning, maybe by putting in little gems from outside of those two sets. Um, but I mean,
So
are you tied? So are you tied to keeping it the size of a regular Wizards set, or are you free to sort of expand it? Or, I mean, I assume you don't want to go any smaller than your typical Wizard set.
no, so it was I think about 30 or 40 cards bigger than a normal set, which is nice for variety. It's nice to get a few more cards that people like in there, but didn't want to stray too far because it was important to follow a typical set structure. And Mark Rosewater has written a couple really good articles about design skeleton or set skeleton,
Yeah.
where he breaks down like every common and uncommon slot in a set and what they should be. And so he'll say, okay, there's 19 white commons in a typical set. There's this many 1-drops, this many 2-drops, there's this many 3-drops. There's a cheap flyer, it could be 2 or 3 mana. Then there's an expensive flyer, that should be 4 or 5 mana. And then you have one cheap deal damage to an attacker removal, and you have one pacifism effect. And it's like the entire set's broken down, and every typical Magic set follows it to some degree. And so, I had that open the whole time, making sure, that we're in line with that. And the decisions of what gets cut, it's not a case of here's 400 cards, cut 150 of them.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause, like, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
It was,
It's huge.
here are all the cards. Now just go card by card and find cards in the same slots and figure out which to keep. Because, using like Ixalan as the default, and you have Rivals, and Rivals has, it kind of, mirrors it in a way with its own differences. So
And there is some overlap there, I
every,
think, as well, right? There's some cards that are reprinted in those two, which I guess helps.
yeah. So an example would be there's always like a white common pacifism effect. So Rivals of Ixalan has Luminous Bonds. Enchanted creature can't attack or block for 3 mana. Ixalan has Pious Intervention, I think, which is 4 mana, same thing, but you gain 2 life when it enters. And so it's really, okay, one of these is making the cut, one of these is going out.
Right.
And then there's something like, okay, the white common dinosaur 5-drop. In one set, it's a 3/4 flying. In the other one, it's a 2/5 flying, and it can gain vigilance if you have another dinosaur. So then just look at those 2 cards side by side. Okay, which one is in, which one is out?
Hundreds of decision
And
points here already, right?
sorry?
There's hundreds of decision points here already.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess there must have been, put the 2 sets together, cut 150 cards. That's a lot of decisions, and then things interact where there's creature types matter. So if I say,
Right.
well, I like this, these 2 sets have a 3-drop dinosaur. Which one am I keeping? And then, well, this one has this effect, but so I don't need the 5-drop from the other set that mirrors that effect. For example, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does. It does. And you can see how, like, that first round of decisions already is onerous, right? Like, you're carrying the weight of the world on your back, and for a tournament which at the end of the day only hosted 60 players, right? So this is truly a labor of love, and a gigantic effort on your part, for which we retroactively thank you. It couldn't have been easy. I have a theoretical question to ask you, though, separate from all that, and before we carry on with the further decisions which we've yet to discuss. You talked about the Rosewater's design skeleton. Let me ask you a general theoretical question. Do you think that Magic sets were more or less interesting, or more or less good, let's say, for being free of this design skeleton in the early days, or being chained to the skeleton like all latter day sets seem to be.
Yeah, I think Magic sets tend to be a lot safer now,
Yeah,
and so you don't have as many big swings, you don't have as many big misses,
right,
and sometimes they can feel kind of samey, but that sameness
right.
is proven. Um, so it's a trade-off of what you like, but yeah, it's nice when you look at old sets. I'm like, whoa, this sounds really weird. Ooh, I haven't done this again since then. I wonder why. And it's like, oh, because it missed the mark because it was too far off for, you know. Um,
Yeah, like Conflux or something. I think all the gold cards, and that was a sort of famous miss. And the underpowered, Kamigawa sets famously didn't really work the way that they should or that people wanted them to. I mean, I think that probably I'm somewhere in the middle. I think like having a design skeleton in mind as a sort of heuristic is not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't think that all Magic sets, including the ones that we make in League, need to be chained slavishly to them. Right? I think that things are fun when players need to figure out the rules for a new world or the rules for a new format where their assumptions are challenged and where they have a new puzzle to solve. So, yeah, I think that we probably shouldn't throw out all the design skeleton heuristics and say, just you make fun cards, or like put fun cards in and just whatever. I mean, you have to think about how it's going to play out in your average game. But I do also I take what you said and I agree with it that Magic in some ways has become a bit too samey, has become a bit too safe to the point where, like Monopoly, we're just putting skins on it and assuming that the game will function the same way no matter what the intellectual properties that we overlay on it, right? So,
yeah, and yeah, I think that's part of like, well, there's taking the risk if it misses is cost so
right.
much money. So there's the feeling of playing it safe. I'm sure there's designers who don't want to put their necks on the line, or there's so many layers of approval they have to go through that the one weird idea never gets past enough people. Mark Rosewater is on record for so many different ideas of like, I've been trying to get this published for 10 years before I got it
Yeah,
approved.
I mean, but that's part of. I mean, so look, this is an aside. This is a little bit of a rant. I mean, that's part of the thing about Rosewater's podcast that kind of irritates me. Second only to his voice. No offense, Mark, but it after a while, like it's talking, at a very high register, at a very high pace over a long period of time. It does wear me down. The second thing that gets me is like his self-aggrandizing stories of like, I was the champion of this idea for years, and I was the only voice that saw the worth, and at the end, I was completely vindicated. Right? That's an aside. That's a peeve. I do try because I do care about this stuff. I try to listen to Drive to Work, but there are things that grind me, and one of the things is the narrative of Mark Rosewater as the savior for wonderful ideas that and maybe he is the savior of Magic in the modern form as we know it, but I could probably hear it a little less in that
Well,
form.
one thing is, like, he's not going to mention all the bad ideas that got shot down.
Of course.
just like us, we're talking about the league that we got approved that we did. Because there's a lot of bad ideas. I'm sure I put out a lot of league ideas that didn't quite get there. That got
Right.
filtered out, and we're not going to talk about those.
Sure.
Let's stick to.
Although, look, I do like occasionally examining the cutting room floor for like mechanics that we wanted to try for a league, but we didn't for this reason or that reason. I do think sometimes you can find gems there, and I do think that generally speaking, I think that myself and my guests, yourself included, we're fairly modest, right? We don't say. Like, I would never say, and I knew the truth, and the LC didn't see it, and I just pushed until my vision came through, and now they get it. Because it's a bit fucking, pardon my language. It's not very pro-social. So I don't know what it's like working under him at Wizards of the Coast, but I can't help but think there's probably some people just like listening to that, just grabbing their foreheads, like, oh. Anyway, yeah, back with Mark Rosewater.
I gotta appreciate though that he has put out so much information
Yes.
about design and the design process over the years,
Yes.
and something like the skeleton, which other companies or other designers might not do.
Yeah.
And in this case, where it's like I've never designed a magic set before, I'm gonna lean on this design skeleton he's providing,
Yeah.
because otherwise I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And also because there are going to be dozens and dozens of people paying to play in this for multiple weeks. I want to have it be a reasonable experience. As comparison, Adam ran a roto draft recently where he said this is an experimental cube. I don't know what's going to happen. Good luck, figure it out. And then you look at this cube list and like there's 4 blue creatures in it, and you're like, oh boy, like what am I supposed to do here? And that's okay if you're doing it for
Right.
8 people who know what they're getting into. But I think in terms of we want to run a league for a few weeks, there I feel like I want to play it a bit safe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and you can see the pressures you're talking about in like making a league safe. The pressures are multiplied manyfold for people working at Wizards who want to protect the bottom line for their investors, right? And keep the reputation of the game safe and solvent. And I also do have to appreciate Rosewater's transparency, right? He's inspired a sort of new generation of game designers. And he's been upfront and on the table in a lot of ways about the process of creating a game that's very influential and important. And it could have had all that information either gated or never ever released if the company had put a tighter hold on him. So in a way, I have to thank Mark's ego and urge for self-aggrandizement because it's revealed the process for creating magic sets for us all. So it's a bit like Mandeville's The Fable of the Bees or Adam Smith's theory about economics, right? Which is basically that people seeking their own self-interest has good effects for society overall. And this seems to be a case in point where we've all benefited from Mark telling his story in his way. I think that lots of people acknowledge his contributions. Not many people are as upfront as I am about registering irritation with some of his modes of expression. But I'm willing to take that on the nose. I'm not expecting a contract with Wizards of the Coast anytime soon, so I'm free to say these things for the moment. All right, moving back to the design skeleton. We were at the part of the story where you've just bulked and now you're cutting. You're using the design skeleton that Rosewater's provided to snip off, cards individually or maybe in chunks. And then once you cut to a certain point, then you want to fill it back out again. So now we've talked about the process of what gets left on the cutting room floor in terms of like, well, we've already got this slot filled in the design skeleton, etc. What are you putting back in to refill the set to oversize? Obviously, flavor is one of those criteria that we've already discussed, but are there any others? I do know there are some cards that are off-plane that found their way into the bonus sheet and even maybe the regular Ixalan Remastered packs.
So in terms of set size, I'm not counting the bonus sheet. That's kind of its own thing. In terms of being a bit larger than usual, it was mostly just extra rares and mythics. Because if there's 20 extra uncommons, that does kind of screw up the balance of the number of effects and how much they should appear in the design skeleton. But if you put 20 extra rares and 5 extra mythics, it doesn't really disrupt because each of those cards is thing, and that's not what the limited environment is made out of. And that's really kind of came down to just wanting to cut less. Like, hey, these are the rares. These are really exciting cards. These are what we remember from the set. And so it's okay to leave more of them in. So that's what was used to make sort of like the base set a bit bigger. And then I think the one thing at Uncommon, there were a few extra cards, which I think is really important, that I made the decision to downshift the rare dual lands from Ixalan.
Right.
And Rivals has a cycle of 5 enemy-colored lands at Uncommon. And Ixalan has 5 rares of allied color. Well, it's kind of weird to have one cycle at Uncommon, one at Rare. And rare lands are good for selling packs. They suck for sealed.
Right.
They're the number one complaint when someone's like, "Oh man, my pool is awful." It's because you open a couple or more rare lands. So,
Although, to be
well,
fair, maybe in this current set, right, in terms of how things are looking in Lorwyn Equipped, any more fixing is probably a good thing. Like, I could use a few more duels in my pool, honestly. But yeah, in most cases, it feels like a whiff. It feels like I could have had some powerful card in here. Instead, I've got a minorly, maybe not even useful, if depending where the colors are heading. Double land.
or instead of a rare land, I would have taken an Evolving Wilds.
Yeah.
I don't need to be a rare. Just give me the same common I've got every other set for the last 10 years. I'll take that one. So anyway, I figured, okay, let's put 5 more in commons. We'll downshift those. And I think that's at the end what I felt was the biggest mistake. And unfortunately, it was also like that's what stood out to me. It kind of feels like the biggest choice, and also, the biggest mistake.
Mistake because
which is a little too
because
bad.
on paper it sounds good, right? On paper it sounds good. More fixing for more people. What's the matter with that?
So in the end, I felt like it was too much fixing, and a lot of sets have a cycle of common duels. So here's like, well, if they're uncommon, that's not that bad. But one thing is, I think sealed doesn't need as much fixing as draft, and league doesn't need as much fixing as sealed,
Right.
even
Yeah.
because we're opening twice as many packs.
True.
And there's always the risk of once you open 12 packs that you have 12 or more duels, and you just make your 5-color soup. And it's aggravated here in Ixalan because treasure is a major theme.
Right.
And treasure is Ixalan's way of enabling splashes or having color fixing. Instead of having there'd be a lot of duels.
Yep.
And so having 5 extra uncommon duels, plus treasure, plus 12 packs total, I think ends up being too much fixing in the end.
So everybody can play everything, and we're in a soup environment essentially by the end of the tournament. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It makes it too easy to play your most powerful stuff instead of being forced to make hard decisions about which colors you want to be, which cards are worth it.
Okay. Well, maybe that brings us to the point of our discussion where we can begin to talk about how we might have done things differently, right? So we talked a little bit about the process of coming to this set of cards and the kinds of heuristics you employed. If you were going to do it again, if you're going to do Ixalan Remastered, or Ixalan Revisited, or whatever, how do you think we could make this tournament a better experience for players, other than respecting the rarity of the dual lands?
Otherwise I'm really happy with how it turned out and how it worked out. And there's always little decisions of, it could have been this card instead of that card. But I think all that stuff's relatively minor. There could always be more communication about the process, about what the goals are, why certain things are included or aren't included.
Yeah, I think maybe like a designer's notes, or sort of like manifesto of some sort at the beginning of the tournament might help people get on board, or at least get a
But
handhold on where the set's heading?
but for the most part, I felt like there's an idea, it makes sense. Players got it. I think people tended to enjoy it, with the caveat that it was still Ixalan and still isn't a great set. But that's what we're working with.
Yeah.
And I don't think it needed. We just had the Ascend.
Yeah.
Your 10 rares as a little extra rule, little bonus. I think that's good. I feel like if we revisited now, there'd be a few more extra rules. But we've had a little bit of rules creep or mechanics creep in League.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Or
we just made it through Avatar, right? But I do think that the current League, Lorwyn Eclipsed, I think it's the right balance of a very simple rule set, relatively easy to implement, tech-wise, but deep enough to keep players engaged, right? I think the balancing two pools week to week is a novel enough challenge to keep people interested without needing like a gimmicky restriction of the week or anything like that. So yeah, I'm happy with the current one in terms of complexity, but maybe you're right. Maybe if we did this again, we'd want to like spice it up a little bit more. But I think the way to spice it up would probably be to turn to other sets that we haven't covered already and kind of applying the same methodology to them. So let me ask you a different question then. If you wouldn't do Ixalan Remastered any differently, or much differently, how would you do a similar flashback tournament, 3 weeks for M19, M20, and M21?
Yeah. I was thinking about this because
This is
definitely
unscripted,
after.
folks. By the way, I didn't prep Johnny with the information that I'd be asking him this question. I just dropped it on him. But great example of parallel thought here. Johnny's come to this all on his own, and I can't wait to hear what he's about to say.
After Ravnica Adventure League, and it's like, oh, what's next?
Right.
And well, there's still the core sets out there, and that's a tough one because it is the biggest challenge is finding like when to do it.
Yeah.
Because with Ixalan Remastered, it's like, well, look, Lost Caverns is coming out. This is the perfect time, and it's kind of now or never. It's I think going to be hard to find a time when it's ooh, core set remastered, great. It's always been like, well, we could have done something else instead. And
The poor core sets. No respect. No respect for them. So, but I mean, look. Let's say there is a positive answer to this. How do you do it? Like, do you do the bulking and cutting technique? Do you put all three sets together and make a sort of like an core set, right? Like the core set of all core sets. Kind of like what they were trying to do. Wizards was trying to do this for a while, I think, with a certain product, weren't they? I'm trying to think what that product was. Maybe it was just like the revised set for a while was supposed to be like that's the main set, it won't change, and then everything else is in addition to that. But I think they were also trying to do that with maybe Foundations. It's like this is the core set now for the next 5 years or whatever, or 3 years. I don't know. Would you like to include Foundations in there as well in terms of like bulking?
yes, but not all of Foundations. So my idea would be take M19, M20, M21. Probably do something like Ixalan and Rivals, where I kind of add them together, then took stuff out. Take those three sets. This is going to be the bulk of it. We're going to still try to make a sort of normally structured set. We're going to cut all the vanilla creatures. We're going to cut as many of the French vanilla creatures as we can. Try to find the cards that are interesting. Mix and match themes from the sets. And then it's got to be a bonus sheet. And the bonus sheet will be Foundations, but only Foundation cards that weren't in the main set. Because Foundations, it has its main draft set, but then had hundreds of extra cards that were in Foundations, but they weren't in the draft set. They were just like in the intro box or in
Jumpstart.
Jumpstart or some other supplement, and there's all these cards that were kind of added to the Arena client and not really used for anything,
Yeah.
including all kinds of classics, tons of cool reprints, and we haven't used them for League yet, I believe, and so
We have not. We used
have not
Foundation
yet.
main set, but we have not used. I mean, and plus Foundations as a set kind of got chunked up into Plane Chase too, right? So we never really did Foundations as Foundations, right? So in a way, even that core set's been deprived of its place in the sun.
But yeah, so I think we've at least done it, even though it didn't quite get to shine. But so my course at Remastered is, to summarize, M19, M20, M21 mixed together as like the main set, and then you do one card per pack of all the sort of other Foundation cards, which, and you pick them based on what's exciting, what's a classic card, what are people going to be excited to open, what's you know there's tons of good stuff in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, that'd be my way of remastering the core sets
I'd be
to revisit
excited.
them.
I'd be excited to play that.
A-
That might be enough.
We get to cross three of them off the list at once. Three birds with one stone. So we don't have to do M19 League on its own and then M20 League on its own.
I don't think anybody wants that. Even the completionists don't want that.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. We'll do three at once.
like I think that Caleb did it right by chunking up guilds of Ravnica Allegiance, and War of the Spark, and saying, look, we're gonna use these three sets that we haven't used before on the Arena Gauntlet League tournament series, and we're just gonna use them as basically a skin for the Choose Your Own Adventure tournament that I want to pitch. Maybe if we had like a Chandelar style league, right, we could throw these sets in as the kinds of like cards that we pick up along our quest or something. That might be another way to sort of sell it, is to say, well, we have another really arresting league mechanic that's wild in terms of like what it requires players to do, right? Maybe the interface is, you have a sort of battle, then you go to the store, you buy random cards from these sets, right, that we've already laid out, and then you don't really need, for example, a new world to sell that kind of complicated tournament mechanic, but maybe you just use that real estate if and when that kind of tournament concept rears its head and needs to be filled out.
Still waiting for Chandelar League.
Yeah, I mean
That's still on the to-do list. I haven't let that one go yet.
no, neither have I. There's still an unfilled thread in the league committee channels for whenever somebody thinks of Chandelar. Someone will put a post there, and then it's like silent for another 2-3 months, and then somebody else like, hey, what about Chandelar League? I mean, we do have a hole that we're still trying to fill, and this is something that I'm going to probably talk about on this show until we fill it. For June, right? In June, we have a 3-week accelerated league that we have yet to reveal or announce or think about clearly yet. I guess maybe while you're here, Johnny, I'll pick your brain about one further thing. We tomorrow the Powered Cube's coming back to the Arena client for the third time, and I've sort of been itching to do a powered up league. What do you think the prospects are for a sort of unpowered Arena Cube as a basis for a 3-week league, right? And so one of the things that I talked about with previous guests on the show, I think I talked about with Jack last week, was should we let player wildcard availability determine the kinds of tournaments that we offer? Or should we just assume, hey, if you're enough of a sicko to play this tournament, you're going to find a way to craft those wildcards? What's your take on this? Or do you think, like we sort of debated whether part of the charm of League is starting off at a low power level, or whether like you should be able to switch the dial up sometimes and just start off juiced and get even crazier from there? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so wildcards, I have a hard time commenting on because I'm, a sicko or the the sickoest there is, and it's like I have so many. I craft anything I want. I already have everything crafted. It doesn't really connect with me, and I have like no idea what experience like for an average player, an average leaguer.
You're the
So it's hard to
1%.
say.
You're out of touch. You're a wild card billionaire, essentially.
Y- Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it is okay for 1 3 week league to be like, look, this isn't for everyone. It's only 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Come back when the next major set comes out. I think that's okay. Um, and and then you let the players know what to expect, and they can make their own decision. Do I want to participate in this one or not? That's fine.
Yeah.
And it's still possible to do something like that and make decisions over what's in, what's out. I've done it with cubes when I've tried to make cubes to say, here's a card that was only in an anthology. People probably haven't collected it. Anyone who plays this card, who drafts this card, is going to cost them a mythic wild card. Is different than here's a mythic that was in the last set. I assume people have it, or this card's a staple. If you craft it, it's fine. You're going to see it in other cubes that you play, or you're going to use it in Brawl at some point. And then this was a two-part question. The other part was
So is it okay to start off completely juiced? So like part of the story of like what makes League play appealing for a lot of people is that it's the hero's quest, right? You start out with your wooden sword and your leather armor, and you get more tools from there, and you become more formidable, right? So starting off the quest with your flame shooting sword and your vibranium shield or whatever kind of defeats the purpose of League. So what do you think of that? Or you think that's a dial that we occasionally we can turn up to make the tournament design a bit more interesting?
yeah, I think it's a really important part of the tournament series. It's also okay to swing the pendulum to say, okay, this is the league. It's going to be super juiced. This is the league. You're going to start really powerful, and or you use powerful cards and still not have a perfect deck. It's relative. Of hey, I have a bunch of powerful cards in a pile, and now over the next 3 weeks, I'm going to have cards in a tuned deck, and so there's still room to evolve and to grow in that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big challenge on what cards to include, how to distribute them. Is it the same? Can you just give people 90 cards to start and 15 cards each time?
Right.
Maybe not. It depends what the goal is exactly. Depends what the card pool is, and it's certainly possible. But it'll be different for sure than what we usually do.
Yeah.
And powered cube or unpowered cube is very much a draft format more than a sealed format.
That's new. Yeah.
The most busted cube ever played. A common friend of ours, Tim M,
Yep.
who owns every card of Magic, played his power cube once. Only 6 people said, okay, let's just do sealed instead of draft. And my sealed pool had 5 pieces of power and Soul Ring and all kinds of other premium cards. And we did round robin. I didn't lose a game. No game was particularly close. And these are against other power cube decks. And I
Right.
just like crushed everyone.
Yeah.
And well, that was fun for me. I don't know how much fun this is for the other players. We're like, because in draft you're never going to have more than 3 pieces of power. But in sealed, yeah, you can get 5 or 6.
Yeah, I was telling people actually about Tim M the other day. I take part in this sort of like in-person cube event at a game design studio here in Vancouver. And I was telling them, like, I was privileged enough to go to one of these events at Tim M's house where he has the, original Power 9. He lets people play with them. And they just couldn't believe it. They said, like, I can understand somebody allowing somebody to see a binder with them in them and maybe get their pictures taken, as some people did. I think it was Spaghetti Mitch who was taking pictures with the Power 9 at the time. Like, I mean, it's not like meeting Richard Garfield or something, but I can kind of get the excitement. But yeah, I mean, it's very generous of Tim to do that with his cards and let people like have the experience of actually playing with them. So it's pretty awesome he does that, and it's acknowledged on this coast as well. You can let him know.
Okay, that's nice. I'll let them know.
Yeah,
But anyway, the point was, playing cube, is much more a draft thing of getting niche archetypes, of having very particular decks, which
right.
is trying to seal differently than a normal set that we're used to playing. So it would be a really tricky challenge on how to design that league
Hmm.
and how to design the card pool. But I don't know. I think it would be interesting and exciting.
I'd play it. I'd play in that for $10. And more
Yeah.
more to the point. I mean, talking about like the barrier. I think the excitement's there. Talking about the barrier to entry a bit more. We have to keep in mind that like when we used to run League in stores, we'd have things like Ultimate Masters League, which I can't recall the exact price point on, but I think it was north of $90, maybe even something like
Yeah.
120, right? For the base for your 6 packs to start. So, like, given that that's something that we did in the past, and say we sort of marketed it, we said it's the Ballers League, right? You're in or you're out. We kind of like use the snob appeal to sell it. I think that similarly, like just participating in such a league that is wildcard intensive could be a sort of point of pride for some players, right? Like, and it's sort of it thins out the non-hackers, right? So already, like, you just have the sickos in. It's like the high stakes poker and the poker table at the casino or something. Like you know what you're in for, and I think that's okay in a
Yeah.
certain context. As long as as long as you tell people up front what's involved.
Exactly. Yeah. If people have the information, they can make their own decisions. The one thing is I can see it being a negative in terms of like league growth, because once you have someone say, "I'm going to set up this league," it becomes a lot easier for them to say, "Well, I'm going to set up the next league." Into, "Oh, I haven't checked that server in 3 months, and I'm never going to sign up for a league again." Where if you want to prioritize league growth, it's like, well, we need the leagues to each league has to appeal to people to keep them in and keep them going and to draw in new people. Because if you say we're doing a league, only 50 people are going to want to play in this. What are the other 150 people who were in, Lorwyn do in the meantime? And I can see that being an issue.
Retention, yeah.
Personally, for me, that's always been a bit less important for me than other people. But yeah, I'll let the current league committee decide on the priorities there.
Well, given what you
But
just said, I can see an argument being made for having the arena unpowered cube play a part of the Player of the Year 2026 tournament,
oh yeah,
right?
oh that's a good one.
And I
Yeah,
think like then you have a group of people who are deeply invested in the game, who probably have robust collections, and if they don't already have them, they're probably willing to, open up some wild cards, open up some packs, and get there to play this event because it's already elite, right? And it's already gated, so it kind of solves that problem, and it solves the problem of retention, and it also gives us a sort of like high stakes environment to showcase this. But again, if we make that part of the Player of the Year 2026 tournament, we're going to have to make sure that the problem of curation is well explained and well defended. We're going to want to be transparent about all the minutia of how this cube is made and the decisions that were, thought of before releasing it. But I do think it'll solve part of the problem too, because we're sort of making more of the Player of the Year tournament draft related. You might have noticed in 2025, right? 2 of the 3 rounds were drafts, and there was just 1 round of sealed instead of 2 rounds of sealed followed by a draft. So, given that that's the case, some of the degenerate sealed opens that you had mentioned can be avoided because other people will be competing for the degenerate pieces of that puzzle. So it might be self-solving in that way. And we won't be playing with powered cards anyway unless Wizards actually makes them craftable on the client, which so far at least they've been reluctant to do. So we'll see. Maybe tomorrow the whole set will be craftable on Arena. I highly doubt it, given they haven't signaled their willingness to do that. But we've been surprised before.
they're too busy programming in the Ninja Turtles cards too.
We'll get to that on the next Leagues Ahead. And that reminds me, Johnny, we're rounding up on the hour mark here. So unless you have any final comments, do you?
No, I think that's all. That's all good. Yeah, I got dinner. I'll look just about ready.
All right, then. I'll thank you for your time, Johnny, as usual. It's been delightful talking to you, reminiscing about some leagues behind, and I'm sure that we'll be talking to you again fairly soon. Best wishes to you,
All
friend.
right, pleasure talking to you, Chris.
All right, bye for
Cheers.
now.